An old spiral notebook lying on a dorm room desk, dust and lamplight. A college student found his old high school diary in a box of junk. He opened it just to laugh at his teenage handwriting. But 3 nights later, there was a new entry, written in his handwriting, describing something that hadn't happened yet. And the next day, it did. Dim college dorm hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing, late night vibe. What's up, y'all? Welcome back. So before we get into tonight's story, I gotta give you the disclaimer I always give for these submission-based stories. This account was sent to me by a viewer. We're calling him Caleb for privacy reasons. That's not his real name. And like always, I can't independently verify every detail. What I can tell you is that Caleb provided photos, screenshots of texts he sent his roommate in real time while this was happening. Timestamps that line up. And honestly, after reading through everything he sent me, twice, I believe him. Or at minimum, I believe that something deeply messed up happened to this guy. So here's the setup. Caleb is 20 years old, sophomore at a state university in North Carolina. Normal dude, business major, plays intramural basketball, has a part-time job at a coffee shop on campus. The kind of guy who is, by his own admission, not the type of person stuff like this happens to. Until October of his sophomore year, when he found a notebook in a box his mom had shipped him from home. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why Caleb told me he still, to this day, cannot fall asleep without a light on. Cardboard moving box, dorm room clutter, fall semester vibes. Oh, Caleb's mom had been cleaning out his old bedroom. You know how moms do once you leave for college. They start reclaiming territory, and she shipped him a box of stuff she found. Old yearbooks, a varsity jacket he never wore anymore, some trophies, random stuff from his childhood bedroom that she figured he'd either want or want to throw away himself. Buried at the bottom of that box was a plain black notebook. Composition style, the kind you get at any drugstore. Caleb recognized it immediately. It was his diary, from sophomore year of high school. Hands flipping through an old notebook, handwritten pages, casual nostalgic energy. Now, Caleb wasn't, like, a deep diary-keeping kind of guy. He told me he started it because of a school assignment. His English teacher had them keep a journal for a semester for participation credit, and he just kept doing it for a few months after the assignment ended, out of habit. Then he stopped. Typical teenage attention span. The diary covers maybe 8 months total, sophomore year of high school, for years before this story takes place. He sat on his dorm room bed that night, his roommate Jordan out at a study group, and started flipping through it, mostly laughing at himself, cringing at his own handwriting, his own teenage drama. There was a whole entry about a girl named Madison who didn't text him back for 2 days and how he thought his life was over. Standard 15-year-old stuff. He read for maybe 20 minutes. Took a few pictures of funny entries to send to Jordan later as a joke. Then he closed it, tossed it on his desk, and went to bed. Didn't think about it again for 3 days. Late night dorm room, desk lamp on, notebook sitting closed on desk. Then, on a Thursday night, Caleb was sitting at his desk doing homework. It was around 11:30 p.m. He remembers because he was watching the clock, dreading an 8 a.m. class the next morning. And he glanced over at the diary, still sitting on the edge of his desk where he'd left it. And for no real reason, he picked it up again. Flipped to where he'd left off. There was a new entry. After the last one he remembered reading. His stomach did something weird. He told me, in his own words, "My first thought wasn't this is scary. My first thought was, wait, did I write more of this than I remember? Like, my brain tried so hard to make it make sense before it let itself be scared." Close-up suggestion of handwritten page, dim lamplight, slightly unsettling angle. The entry was dated, not with a date from high school, with that day's date, October 9th, and it was written in his handwriting, not close to his handwriting, not similar, identical, same slant, same way he crosses his sevens, same exact way he always messes up writing a capital G. The entry said, "Tomorrow Jordan is going to spill coffee on his laptop right before his presentation is due. He's going to panic and ask to borrow mine. Don't let him use the charger by the window. It's been sparking." Caleb stared at that page for what he said felt like 10 minutes straight. Coffee shop counter, laptop on a desk, college classroom hallway. Okay, so here's where Caleb did exactly what I think most of us would do. He told himself it was a coincidence, or a prank, or honestly, his first real theory, that maybe he had written it. Sleepwalking. Some kind of dissociative thing. He'd heard of people doing weird stuff while sleep-deprived. College kids run on basically no sleep. It's not that far-fetched to imagine writing something half asleep and not remembering. So he didn't say anything to Jordan. He just watched. The next morning, Jordan was getting ready for his 10 a.m. marketing presentation. A group project, big chunk of his grade. He'd been stressed about it for a week. He was running around the dorm room half-dressed, laptop open, finishing slides, and he knocked his coffee mug right into his keyboard. Spilled coffee on a laptop, dramatic but not graphic, steam/panic energy. Caleb said his entire body went cold. He watched it happen in what felt like slow motion. Jordan's elbow catching the mug, the coffee sliding across the keys, Jordan's whole face going white. And then, exactly like the diary said, Jordan turned to him and said, "Dude, can I borrow your laptop? I'm so dead, my presentation's on here, please." Caleb said yes, handed it over without even really processing what he was doing. And then Jordan went to grab the charger, Caleb's charger, which was plugged in by the window, and Caleb, almost without thinking, blurted out, "Don't use that one. It's been sparking. Use the one by my bed instead." Jordan didn't even question it. Just grabbed the other charger and ran out the door to make his presentation. Caleb sat alone in that dorm room for a solid 5 minutes, just staring at the diary on his desk. Empty dorm room, notebook on desk, morning light through blinds. Now here's a detail I want to point out, because it matters for later in this story. Caleb told me that charger had been sparking, just slightly, just at the plug, nothing he'd really registered as dangerous, more like a thing in the back of his mind he kept meaning to mention to his RA. He hadn't told anyone that, hadn't written it down anywhere. It was just a passing thought he'd had once, days earlier, and basically forgotten about. The diary knew it anyway. That night, Caleb texted Jordan, and this is one of the screenshots he sent me, with timestamps, and just casually asked, "Hey, did your presentation go okay? Sorry about the coffee thing, LOL." Jordan responded, "Bro, it was so close. If you hadn't let me borrow your laptop, I would have actually failed the project. You're a lifesaver." Phone screen with text messages, dim lighting, blue glow on a face. Caleb opened the diary again that night. Carefully, almost like he expected it to bite him. There was another new entry. This one said, "Good job believing me. Tomorrow, don't take the shortcut through the parking garage on the way to your 2 p.m. class. Take the long way around, even though you'll be a few minutes late." Caleb told me this was the moment he stopped trying to convince himself this was a coincidence or a sleepwalking thing, because the entry wasn't describing something passive anymore. It was giving him an instruction. Empty parking garage, concrete pillars, flickering overhead lights. Now, I want to slow down here, because this is the part of Caleb's account that genuinely disturbed me the most when he first sent it to me. Caleb's university has this parking garage that connects to the main academic building through a covered walkway. Pretty standard campus infrastructure. Hundreds of students cut through there every single day without thinking twice about it. Caleb himself used that shortcut multiple times a week. It saved him almost 10 minutes versus walking around the building. The next day, he had a decision to make. Trust a notebook that had been right twice already, or trust his normal routine. He chose the notebook. Student walking on a different path, taking the long way. Campus exterior, he took the long way. Got to his 2 p.m. class about 6 minutes late. Minor, his professor barely noticed, definitely not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. He sat through that entire class. He told me he could not focus on a single word the professor said. Phone in his lap, refreshing the campus safety app, the one that sends out alerts for incidents on campus. Most students have it installed and immediately mute the notifications because it's usually just stuff like, "Be aware of icy sidewalks." About 20 minutes into class, his phone buzzed. A campus-wide alert. A structural issue had been identified in the parking garage, specifically in the covered walkway connecting to the academic building. A support beam had partially given way. Maintenance had cordoned off the area. No injuries reported, but the alert specifically noted that the walkway had experienced a partial ceiling panel collapse, roughly 15 minutes earlier. Caleb pulled up the timestamp on the alert. It lined up almost exactly with when he would have been walking through there, if he'd taken his normal route. Caleb's phone screen showing the alert. Recreate generically, not exact real campus alert. I want to be honest with y'all. Caleb sent me a screenshot of this alert, with the timestamp, And I'm not going to pretend I wasn't shaking a little bit reading through this case before I even started writing the script for it. That night, Caleb didn't wait for a new entry to appear naturally. He sat at his desk, notebook open to a blank page, and for the first time, he wrote something himself. He wrote, "Who are you? How are you doing this?" He stared at that blank page under his question for almost 40 minutes. Nothing happened. No new handwriting appeared. Eventually, he gave up and went to bed, leaving the notebook open on his desk. Notebook open on a desk in dim moonlight, slight breeze through curtains. When he woke up the next morning, there was an answer, written directly underneath his question, in his own handwriting. You. From later. I don't have much time before this stops working, so listen carefully. Stop taking notes of everything I tell you. Jordan is starting to notice you acting strange, and that matters more than you think right now. Tomorrow, the bigger thing happens. The thing I've been trying to warn you about since the beginning. Don't go to the campus library after 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Please. I'm asking you as you. Don't go. Campus library exterior at dusk, lit windows, quiet, ominous atmosphere. Okay, so let's slow all the way down here, because this is the part of the story where things stopped being weird but survivable and started being genuinely terrifying for Caleb. You. From later. Caleb told me he read that sentence probably 50 times. Sat with it. Tried to wrap his head around what it could possibly mean. Was this future him sending messages backward through time, somehow, through this notebook? Was this some kind of entity that had taken the form of his own handwriting to manipulate him? Was he losing his mind? He didn't know. He still doesn't know, honestly. And he told me that's the part that haunts him the most. Not knowing. Caleb pacing in dorm room, anxious energy, checking phone repeatedly. He spent that entire day in a fog. Skipped his morning class, something he told me he'd never done before in his entire college career. Jordan asked if he was okay, and Caleb just said he wasn't feeling well, which, honestly, wasn't really a lie. By that evening, he had a decision to make. The notebook, or whatever was communicating through it, had been right twice now, in ways that weren't just spooky coincidences. A laptop, a collapsing walkway, real, verifiable, documented events. And now it was telling him to stay away from the library. Here's the thing, though, and this is the twist that I think makes this story different from every other psychic warning story you've probably seen on this kind of channel. Caleb didn't listen. Campus library at night, fluorescent lighting, students studying quietly. He told me his reasoning, and honestly, it tracks. He had a huge chemistry exam in 2 days. He'd been falling behind because of everything going on with the notebook, too distracted, too freaked out to focus on actual schoolwork. The library was the only place on campus open late enough and quiet enough for him to actually catch up. He thought, if something dangerous is really going to happen, maybe me being there is what stops it from happening to someone else. Maybe that's why I'm being warned, not to avoid it, but to be ready for it. So at around 8:45 p.m., Caleb walked to the library. Notebook in his backpack, just in case. Library interior, study desks, late-night quiet atmosphere, single figure at a table. For the first hour, nothing happened. He studied, checked his phone constantly, watched the door more than his textbook, if he's being honest. Around 9:40 p.m., a library security guard, a man Caleb recognized but didn't know personally, an older guy who'd worked there for years, collapsed near the reference section. Cardiac event. Right there on the library floor. Caleb was one of 3 students in that section of the library at that hour. He was the one who got to him first. He'd taken a basic CPR certification course the summer before college, something he'd almost skipped, something his mom had basically forced him to do, and he started chest compressions immediately while another student called 911. The guard survived. Paramedics later told campus security that the speed of intervention, bystander CPR starting almost immediately, was very likely what made the difference in his survival and recovery. Ambulance lights outside a building at night, distant and respectful framing. Caleb went back to his dorm room that night completely numb. Sat down at his desk. Opened the notebook. There was one more entry. The last one he ever received that IT said, "You weren't supposed to listen to me this time. You were supposed to be there. I think I finally understand what this was for. Take care of yourself. I don't think I'll be able to reach you again. Let this fully land." And it never did happen again. Not once. In the year and a half since Caleb's dorm room. Calm and ordinary now. Notebook closed on a shelf. So here's where things stand now. And here's the part of this story that genuinely messes with my head every time I think about it. Caleb still has the diary. He didn't burn it, didn't throw it away, didn't do any of the dramatic stuff people online told him to do when he first started sharing pieces of this story in a private forum before eventually reaching out to me. He just keeps it on a shelf. Closed. I've covered a lot of strange stories on this channel, and this is one of maybe 3 or 4 where I finished my research more unsettled than when I started. Quiet dorm room window, evening light fading, contemplative mood. Here's what I keep coming back to with Caleb's story. There's a moment in there that I think we skip past too fast when we're focused on the scary parts. The moment where Caleb had a choice. The notebook told him to stay away, to protect himself, and he chose, instead, to show up anyway, because he thought maybe his purpose wasn't to avoid danger, but to be present for somebody else's. Whatever was writing in that diary, future self, subconscious mind, something else entirely, it wasn't wrong about the danger. But Caleb's choice to go anyway? That wasn't written by anybody. That was just him. Maybe that's the actual lesson buried in all this. We don't always get a warning before the hard moments in our lives. Most of the time, we don't get any heads up at all. We just have to decide, in real time, with no notebook and no future version of ourselves whispering instructions, what kind of person we're going to be when it matters. Caleb didn't need a diary to tell him to help that man on the library floor. He just did it.so. Here's the question I want to leave you with tonight, and I genuinely want you to sit with it before you scroll to the comments. If you had a notebook that could warn you about tomorrow, would you actually want it? Because Caleb got his answer, and it wasn't the one he expected. Channel branding, subscribe animation, comment section graphic. Alright, y'all, I need to hear your theories, for real. Drop a comment. Temporal anomaly? Subconscious writing? Something else entirely watching out for Caleb? I read every single comment on these submission stories, and I promise you, your theory might be better than any of the 3 I just gave you. If this story actually got under your skin, smash that like button right now. I mean it. This one took me longer to write than almost anything else on this channel because I kept having to stop and just sit with it. And subscribe, with the bell on, because next week, we've got another viewer submission. This one about a man who started receiving voicemails from a phone number that was disconnected 3 years before he ever got the first call. And what he found out about whose number it used to be. Genuinely one of the most disturbing things anyone has ever sent into this channel. You do not want to miss that one. Stay safe, stay curious, and maybe check under your bed for old notebooks tonight. I'll see y'all next week. Blackheart.